I'm really looking forward to this meetup today because we have Eugene with us. Eugene is my go-to SME. He knows everything about ControlUp and a little bit more. He's been here since day one and even earlier, and an extremely intelligent man, above and beyond just ControlUp technologies into about a little bit of everything or a lot of everything. So we have a great guy here to talk about sort of taking you zero to hero, soup to nuts of ControlUp today, and that's sort of the agenda, the goal. But it's also the community for you. Everything we do is really for you. Please give us feedback. If you don't like something we do, tell us. If you have ideas, let us know. If there's something you want that we're not doing, let us know. Whatever, just let us know. This is for you. We're trying to build an environment so that you can learn ControlUp better, support us, support ControlUp better, meet folks doing the things just like you're doing, right? And extend and embrace this great thing called ControlUp and help that, and hopefully that helps you in your job, today and tomorrow, right? So the community is where you can learn and stay up to date. We have a couple of channels in there that are extremely lively that I really love, which is the release channels. And as we're a lot, mainly a fast solution in many ways, I guess they're constantly coming out with new updates for things. And we're talking almost weekly. So stay up to go to the release channel and you'll see what's new. And you can even ask questions. So the release manager, the lady that's in charge of bringing this product to market and put it out in front of you, is there, and you can ask her questions, and if they don't have answers, they'll find answers for you. It's that simple, right? But you can get help fast. You can brainstorm with other folks. If you thought to yourself, hey, how do I do this? Or I'm thinking about doing this, but I really don't. Is it better to do this way? Well, ask. Just throw those type of questions out there. It's a great place to do that, right? And it doesn't just have to be ControlUp too. If you're thinking about, I'm thinking about Citrix over Horizon, which way should I go? What are you guys doing? It's a great way, it's a great place to ask these questions to folks just like you, right? And of course, also engage with ControlUp employees too, and other techies like you, as I mentioned. But we have 140 ControlUp community or ControlUp members within the community. So please come and join us. There's tons of things we do. Q&As, betas are in there too. If you want to join the beta programs or just stay up to date with what's coming soon there in the community. Meetups like today, we're trying to do one of these a month. The agenda is starting to come out. We have another one later this month on scripting with Guy Leach. So please join that one. We'll share that with you. It's already in the community on the date. Hopefully we'll do in-person events soon. Not hopefully, we will, but it'll probably be this fall once summer's done and we're all get done with our vacations. And then the sky's the limit. So please, if you have any questions, let us know. There's 1,200 of us, plus of us members now, 144 community or ControlUp employees, 10,000 plus messages posted, and we're all over the globe. So if you're from Greenland or know anyone from Greenland, please. Eugene knows this. And again, come join us. So ControlUp.com/community. On that note, today we have, I sort of mentioned him already, but we have Eugene with us. And I'm so excited about this one because I get this question a lot is, hey, I'm new to ControlUp. I've heard about this thing called ControlUp. What is it? You have 3, 4 products, 5 products, 2 products? How many products do you have? When do I use what? What are they? What's the best way to do this? That's sort of the goal of today's, is to start off having that conversation. And there's no better person to do that than our buddy here, Eugene. And he's, like I said, he's been with the company since day one. He knows this technology in and out. And so with no further ado, I guess it's time for me to shut up, right? Time to me to turn it over to the expert.
It's all good, man. It's all good, I think.
Well, there's one more thing I must say, though. If you do have questions, please use the questions piece of Zoom here. At the bottom, there's a little Q&A piece. And please click that. Ask your questions. I'll interrupt Eugene, or Eugene will see it himself. And we'll make sure you get answers. Because, again, this stuff is for you. We're doing this for you. So on that note, Eugene, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Doug. And we have thousands of people, but only one Doug. So yeah, this is the most precious resource. And thanks again for having me here. I look at the list of attendees, and there are very few familiar names. So that's great from my perspective. So I'm always very, very happy to show ControlUp to people who haven't seen enough of it yet. The main idea here, so we were kind of thinking of how to structure this thing and what exactly to talk about. And the inspiration came from some of the sessions that I do at E2EDC, which is a conference for EUC experts. And there, I sometimes, I usually find myself like actually going over the different components of ControlUp, making sure that I actually show them, right? So making sure that people actually see the actual components. So no slides, right? I don't have any PowerPoint slides ready here. What I do have is all of the different products and all of the different components kind of open and available for viewing. So we're going to take a look at the actual things, which is, I think, is super important. And the other thing I want to do is use this glass here like a whiteboard, hopefully explaining how the different pieces connect to each other. The main goal of this is, from my side, is to present the big picture of how the different components of ControlUp fit together. The easiest way for me to talk about all this stuff is just telling a story, like historically how we actually built it. And you'll see that it actually kind of makes sense to tell it chronologically. So like we started, we built this and then we built that because we needed this and then we needed that. So it kind of makes sense as a story because that's how I remember it. And a lot of things are natural, kind of follow like a kind of a natural evolution process over the years. So hopefully by the end of this presentation, you won't be like I'm not expecting any deep dive into any of those parts, especially due to like there's a lot of components, a lot of things to talk about. I'll be really happy if we are able by the end of this hour to kind of present a full picture of everything there is. And even if you end up knowing a little bit about every piece, that's fantastic. If you want to get deeper into some components that we talk about or some technologies that we talk about, then I guess that could be fuel for ideas for our next meetups. So with that,
You got it, Eugene. If I can interrupt you real quick, that's a very good point. Yes, as Eugene's going through this, if there's technologies areas that you want us to dive into deeper, please let us know, because again, as Eugene just said, these are great areas for us to have future meetups and webinars on. So please let us know.
Cool. So we already have a question. Okay, so this is the we have a question, like a very specific one. So from Jose, and Jose is asking like how can text added to the Insights login page be customized? That's really simple. I don't know. So but I can definitely check. So it's interesting, and I'll definitely check about that. But this is an example of things, like I'd be happy to share whatever short answers I have about anything you ask. So by all means, don't hesitate to ask. But the main goal here, let's get to a point where we understand what ControlUp Insights even is, right? So that's, for at least for some people, probably will be relevant. So I definitely promise to check about that specific thing. It's kind of interesting. So let's start from the beginning, right? So the inspiration for ControlUp, and I'm talking about like, okay, that was more than 12 years ago, right? So the main inspiration for ControlUp was us being in the field, right? Looking at all kinds of deployments of it was mainly Citrix back in the day. All kinds of beginnings of RDS or back then terminal server deployments. And Citrix and beginnings of VDI. So the main challenge was just visualizing what's actually happening. So if I want to like cite the first and foremost major inspiration for ControlUp, that would be probably Task Manager, right? So Task Manager, this for me is like the new look, right? So we all remember the good old Task Manager when it was like only this, right? And the idea for like why do we need a task manager? So that's kind of trivial, right? So even as a user, you sometimes need to see like what's actually happening. So when an admin uses task manager, it's usually to look at, okay, what's happening on this machine, and then there's always this question, okay, what about other machines? We want to start looking at other machines, or we want to start looking at multiple machines at the same time, right? So the idea was to basically build a task manager which is targeting multiple machines, right? So that's how ControlUp Agent and ControlUp Console came about. So the two major components that we're going to talk about first is ControlUp Agent and ControlUp Console, right? So ControlUp Agent is a Windows service, basically. It starts off as a Windows service. It's part of the OS once you install it. We'll talk about how we actually install it in a second, but the best way I could think about of looking at the actual thing is actually using ControlUp, right? So if we look in ControlUp and we type CU agent in the processes view, we're going to get like a filtered view of all the ControlUp agent instances that I have in my environment here. And normally it's, like you can see there's 96 items, right? So that means that this particular demo environment has about 96 monitored computers. And by monitored computers, I mean computers on which ControlUp Agent is actually installed. And the reason I'm saying about 96 and not exactly 96 is that because the number of actual instances of CU agent is not exactly one-to-one, right? So we have several types of CU agent instances, right? The classical one, or like the most common one, is the one running in the system session, right? It's running over here with anti-authority system account. It's running in session 0, right? And you can see like the bulk of the machines here, it's running actually in session 0 as anti-authority system. But if we scroll all the way down, I start seeing some other things, right? So I can see there's a guy here that's called CU agent helper, which is actually running inside the session, right? Inside the user sessions. And something that happens every once in a while, we are not actually seeing it now. You will briefly sometimes see another instance of CU agent running inside the user session, right? Which is another case of a CU agent. And lastly, a CU agent can also appear as a data collector. So basically, classically, it's installed on the machine. It gathers information about the machine. It sends it, and actually, it acts like a server, right? So think about it this way: we have, so this is our machine that we want to monitor, right? It can be a VDI machine, it can be a physical PC somewhere. It can be a terminal server. It can be your plain any other Windows server you think about. So classically, you would install ControlUp Agent here as a service. It's running inside that machine, and it's actually a server architecture-wise. So it's actually listening on a port, right? So it's actually listening on a port and waiting for connections to come in and pull the data. So architecturally, the way it's built is as a server, right? So it listens on the port. Now, once we built this, we also realized that when we needed to perform actions, so this is fine, right? So this particular agent running inside the system session is fine and should be sufficient for us to do anything we want on the machine. However, sometimes when you need to affect the actual user, okay, so for a simple example, we want to pull we want to pull the actual policies applied to the user right now inside the session, right? Or we want to take a screenshot of user activity, or want to do something inside the user session with the context of the actual user. So that's when we need to actually run another instance of CU agent inside the user session. So if there's actually several user sessions on that particular machine, then you might every once in a while see additional instances of CU agents spawning as we need to perform actions inside the user sessions. Plus, the CU agent helper, which I mentioned briefly before, is another component which works alongside the agent, and it also runs inside the user session. It's actually there to deliver us some information about what the user is actually doing now. We're going to be able to see some of the results of its work a bit later on. But for now, this agent is here. It's monitoring the local machine, okay, and it needs something to gather the information and show it, right? So that would be our ControlUp console, right? So let's just say that the two major components that we're talking about right now are agent and over here and console, right? And the way that it actually works is that the agent starts, it listens on the port, and a console comes and connects to this agent and pulls the data back and then displays it in the grid like you're seeing on my screen, right? So this, what I'm showing on my screen is actually an instance of ControlUp console, right? So these were the two, this was the pair of components that we initially built. The idea was for only one agent to exist on every machine persistently. By the way, we started off with like a very, very kind of portable and ad hoc deployment strategy. So basically, you would download a single executable. It's still like that, right? If you download ControlUp from the website, what you get is a single executable, and then you can double click it and the console just opens and you use the console to deploy the agent, right? So this is all, this is all available here using add machines, right? So the moment you add the machines, two things actually happen. One thing is that the machines get added to this organizational tree inside the console. And the other thing that happens is that it deploys the agent and installs it remotely over there. Initially, it used to just deploy the agent, and if you don't connect to the agent for 5 minutes, it just uninstalls itself. So like it was like a temporary mode, which made it very easy for us to do POCs, because we used to like show up at customer sites and just deploy it real quick, and then we didn't even have to worry about uninstalling it because it would just remove itself, right? So that was kind of cool. So the idea with ControlUp console itself, let's look at the console executable, right? So okay, so ControlUp console is, if you look at the actual memory footprint, it kind of stands out right away, right? So you see that it's normal for ControlUp console executable to be above 1 gig of RAM, 1-2 gigs of RAM, more in larger environments. So the more processes you basically have, the more insignificant the actual RAM consumption by the console will be. And the main reason is that a console is actually has an in-RAM database. So it has an in-memory database that is getting populated constantly and updated constantly with information about all the processes that run on all of your different monitored machines. So the reason I'm focusing on processes is that because this is the most this is the most densely populated view, right? You have loads of those. You may have hundreds of thousands of processes and millions of processes in certain environments, and that's the most challenging part. Now, besides processes, it also has information about sessions, which we actually treat as, we know what sessions are on Windows machines, but we also treat them as groupings of processes. So as a simple example, if you see a session over here, double clicking on it will actually give you the list of processes that are running inside the session right now. So this is something that we call drill down. So basically the whole logic of looking at the different entities in ControlUp is always by sorting, searching the grid, slicing and dicing it in all kinds of ways, and then drilling down to anything that is of interest to get to see what's actually inside it, right? So one example of that would be, you look at a machine, okay, it's doing something with CPU, let's double click on it and let's see what's happening inside it, right? So that's like who's working on the machine, what processes are running on the machine, and then you also get the drill down to logical disk, virtual disk, and FS logic disk added recently. So that would be like one way to drill down. Another one would be to look at all the sessions running currently and looking at things like, I don't know, who's consuming the most memory, and then you can always drill down to that and see, oh, okay, that's consuming most of the memory, right? So this is a demo environment in which like the most significant application running here is ControlUp console, which gives the impression that it's the most memory consuming application, but by far Chrome is probably a leader in that. So initially it used to be just machines, sessions, and processes, because all we used to do is just connect to Windows machines in any given environment, gather information about the processes and sessions, and then just visualize them in the console, right? So right away, we kind of saw the value in those two things. The one is being able to look at multiple machines at the same time. And the other one is to be able to drill down, right? To go from the machine level to user session level to a process level. And then the next, kind of like the next thing that was on the menu were actions, right? So the most classical, I guess, use case for ControlUp would be finding some offending process and right-clicking it and doing something with it, right? So, still, I guess the most, probably the most popular action that we're using with ControlUp, and the most popular example is killing a process, right? So there's like 50 ways to kill a process with ControlUp, and you can obviously do a bunch of other things, but it's still very interesting how in loads of different scenarios, the users of ControlUp of all kinds of environments actually find it useful as just a process hunting tool, just finding processes that offend and, just killing them, or logging off users that shouldn't be on all kinds of systems, restarting machines. All of those things are kind of, make so much more sense when you have this visibility and the ability to see multiple targets in the same screen and then do this on multiple machines. So that's that was like the main feature set of the console initially. You can notice maybe that right now I'm looking at a bunch of Windows processes, but also Linux processes are in here, right? And it's coming from a machine that, at least judging by the name, is running CentOS and Ubuntu in this case. So over time, we also extended support from Windows machines to also all kinds of other machines, and more on that when we see later. Let's see if we got any more questions so far. So none so far, but please feel free to ask if you guys have any. So agent and console, those are the first things that we built. And then we started noticing something interesting, right? So people used to leave a bunch of consoles open in their network because we had some very, very, very basic alerting capabilities, right? So we were able to record an event, for example, in the system log or application log when something bad was happening. So people wanted that ability to continue not only when they're looking at the actual console, but they wanted to continue to monitor their resources continuously. So what we saw people doing, this is an example of what you see a pattern in your user's behavior, and then you kind of have to think of what's the actual feature that is hiding there, because people didn't actually come and tell us, we need something to monitor our environment 24/7. it took a while before they actually did. But even before that, what was happening was that people used to just like leave instances of the console running 24/7 on their machines, just for the purpose of keeping the monitoring continuous, right? And getting alerts about stuff. So we saw there's multiple instances of the console running everywhere. By the way, like if we just visualize multiple consoles connecting to the same agent, and let's say that we have multiple agents. So because of the way that the agent listens for connections, so say that you have these 3 consoles here and those 3 agents. So the way that it actually happens is that, each console is going to connect to each one of the agents. So you're going to have this kind of like this mesh, right? Of all the consoles connecting to all of the different agents, which is, when you're scaling, right? When you have dozens or hundreds of consoles somewhere, that can become a problem. And when you're scaling the agents, we have 10,000 or 50,000 agents, that can also become an issue. So let's just keep it in mind for a little bit later. So we noticed this pattern of people spawning more and more consoles and keeping them up. Some of them were keeping them up like 24/7 just for the sake of continuous monitoring. And that's when we came up with the idea of creating a headless console, right? So just a background service that acts exactly in the same way as a console would. And we called it ControlUp Monitor, right? So ControlUp Monitor is basically another Windows service running inside the machine. It has no UI of its own, right? You basically control it using the console. You install it, deploy it using the console. You make sure that it has access to all of your monitored agents, and it does exactly what a console would do. It connects to all your different machines and starts gathering data. And one of the major advantages of ControlUp Monitor is the ability to keep it running 24/7, even though there are no consoles connected. So that's how we basically first got our own 24/7 monitoring solution with ControlUp. So the monitor was in charge of being connected at all times, reporting issues whenever they happen. You didn't have to keep ControlUp console open anymore at all times, only when you needed to see what actually is going on. But you could get alerts, basically 24/7. So that's one thing that the monitor actually allowed us to do. And this all happened like over the course of maybe the first year that we were building ControlUps, like we're talking 2011, we launched, and maybe like 2012, the monitor was already a thing. So yeah. What is I'm taking a couple of questions. So what is the easiest way to select multiple processes sessions at once? Great question. So we're still inside the console. So we have other products which we'll be talking about a bit later. But if we're still inside the console, one way of searching for multiple different processes. So let's say that I want to find PowerShell, and I also want to find CMD. So the way to do that is is not super intuitive, but it's just using a pipe, right? The pipe character here in the search box basically works as an OR operator. So you can do PowerShell pipe CMD, and that will do both, right? So that's pretty easy, but not very intuitive. So the pipe character is the answer. And how many agents does each console support on average, right? So that one is much trickier, right? The main there are two main performance bottlenecks, right? So when you're asking like how many agents that each console support, there are two things that are actually the bottleneck here. One is creating actual WCF connections to all of the different agents that you have. So that's one resource that is going to be used heavily, and the other one is the RAM to actually store the connections, store all the objects that you get, meaning the information, all the processes running on all the different machines. So it can be anywhere between several thousand machines, but it actually depends, it actually depends on the number of processes that is running on each machine. So terminal services, or RDS environments, and VDI environments, where there's one user per machine, are kind of different in that regard. So it kind of depends what kind of machines. But it definitely becomes, scale becomes an issue when you want one machine to connect in real time to everything. And let me just show you really quickly one relevant setting that we have in the console. So for example, we have here, right? We have this option to suggest to disable processes view when more than 100,000 of processes are monitored, right? This is just a simple default rule of thumb that we have, that when you have more than 100,000 processes in your environment, which it can be like something between 100 machines, right? And so 100,000. So sorry, there'll be about 1,000 machines, right? So sometimes machines have like 100 processes, sometimes 200 processes or more. So basically, this is about like 1,000 machines. So when you reach that level of 100,000 processes monitored inside one console's RAM, that's when we kind of suggest that you disable the real-time processes view, and that's when basically we only pull the processes when you drill down to them, right? So that's kind of the rule of thumb here. Now, what else do we have here about using this for user search as a single pane class with 10 plus horizon possible data management? Okay, I don't get this question. Sorry. Can we see user search drill down? I'm not sure what you're referring to. If you can clarify the question, Tony, that would be great. I'm not sure I understand what you mean by user search drill down. So let's go on a bit further and talk about historical data. So first, like one of the first things that we got asked when we presented ControlUp back in the day, after we developed the agent, the console, and the monitor, were okay. So this is great. We are seeing data in real time. We also want history for all of that. How do we get the historical reports? So in real time, we're collecting this data, keeping it in the RAM of the console, and now we get historical reports. So the first thing we did was kind of lame. It still exists in the product, but it's super limited. But it's still part of the product, and this is kind of was our I guess the first desperate attempt to kind of get something into production that actually allowed for some kind of historical reporting. This wasn't like, we didn't intend for this to be the actual historical reporting solution, but this is the first thing that we developed about it. So please, that we were still young. So the first thing that we did here was to kind of create an export schedule. And then the console itself, and later the monitor, are able to actually export any view that you see in ControlUp, so like sessions, processes, whatever. It can export the view as a CSV on a scheduled basis. So you can do this once a minute, once every 5 minutes, once every 10 minutes, once every hour. Depends on the amount of storage that you have and the amount of granularity that you need for the data. So that's like the first thing that we did was this. Just outputting the CSVs to the disk, and then either the users are going to use their own data analytic solutions to analyze the files, or we actually built. Back in the day, we also had like a standalone utility that would go through the CSV files and actually present reports. That was discontinued pretty quickly because we realized how badly we need an actual historical reporting solution. So an actual historical reporting solution came a bit later, and this is what we call ControlUp Insights. Now, ControlUp Insights, just real quickly, because of course I got logged off. I'll just get logged in real quick. And one thing that you'll notice is that logging into ControlUp itself, and Insights, it's also like that. Basically, what happens is, you have an email address associated with your account, but we're not using. It used to be that we used to, just use passwords. Every ControlUp account used to have a password. It's not the case anymore. You actually don't need a password with us anymore. What you do need is an active email account, which you can use for multi-factor authentication. So we get multi-factor authentication using email, and then you're able to log in. You'll see in the later products how we went even further with that, with like supporting more modern types of user management and login, right? So, but so far it's you create an account and you have your email. You activate your account with your email, and then we're using that account to send you the multi-factor authentication one-time passwords, and that's the way it works in the console and in Insights as well. So Insights is basically an historical reporting solution, which takes all the data that the console and the monitor gather from the machines, users, sessions, processes, application activity, machine metrics, all of that, and basically puts it in a grid for historical reports, right? So you can see what sessions happened yesterday, what sessions happen. You can do a whole month of reports. You can do trends for things like logon duration, to see the way it behaves over time. So every historical kind of question was addressed with ControlUp Insights. And you're probably noticing that this is actual website. You go to a website and you're looking at your data in the cloud. We started building this a couple of years after the real-time console was already in production in the world. So the world became, over that time, the world became more and more ready to put things in the cloud. So that was, in the beginning, that was very challenging. Most of the questions and the challenging feedback that we had from users was about the fact that we're sending data to the cloud. Over the years, people became much more tolerant to that. So basically, the monitor started gathering the data just the way it used to do, but now it also started packing them into files, encrypting those and zipping those and sending them up to our cloud, and from that cloud, basically we offered Insights, which aside from the fact that that it allows for you to go back in time and look at what happened yesterday. There's also another, significant change from the console. It's no longer a Windows application, which you need to run like inside of your network. You kind of are able to access it from all kinds of places, right? So wherever you have a web browser, basically, suddenly became a place where you can start consuming data from ControlUp. So that also, something that we noticed. We noticed that, in like a large enterprise, we may have 6, 7, 8 people working with ControlUp console in the actual core team. And then we started seeing, like tens, dozens of people actually working with ControlUp Insights because it was more accessible and you could do all kinds of stuff with it. But, like an example of one thing that you couldn't do with it is you couldn't run actions and it wasn't really real time, right? So it was an indicator for us that we need something that will kind of enjoy both worlds, right? So both having actions and seeing and being accessible from anywhere, basically, right? So this, paved the way for our next product that we developed that kind of joined those two things, like the real-time data and also being able to perform actions with the accessibility of having a SaaS solution, which is accessible from a browser, and you don't need a heavy Windows application. Remember this, like the mesh and connecting between all the different consoles and all the agents. So using a SaaS solution that's available from the web and is mediated by the monitor, this is something that kind of solves it, because all you need is a monitor looking all the different machines. You don't need a bunch of instances of a console looking at all of those. So let me see real quick if we have something I can answer real quick. So right, so there's a specific example, like looking for what a user is doing, right? So let me show like real quickly, and again, there's like a whole scenario described here. I can't go into all of the details here, but let me show something real quick about how we would go about looking at what a specific user is doing, right? So when you're looking at the sessions and you type a part of a user's name, it's like right away filters to see everything that is running for that particular user. So if the user has multiple sessions established across the different machines in your environment, you will see those multiple sessions. Another thing that you can do is you can look at the processes view, and you can actually search for, see if I go here and I start typing my name, so that won't actually find my name in the processes view, because by default, it's only looking at the name column. But if I change here to all fields, then I can actually type my username, and that's going to filter the grid to show all the processes that are running under my user account. And even if I have multiple sessions in across all my different different machines in my deployment, I would see all the processes running under my user account, or anything that matches the string Eugene. So that's like, again, a small trick with the filter box here that you can use to show different things that belong to the same person, or any other textual string that you pick. Right. So moving on, the next thing on the menu was basically, people asked for ControlUp to make the information available in real time using a SaaS platform. So that required us to build something much more, to build something new. That was like not an add-on on the existing infrastructure. That required quite a few cloud components and more modern architecture. So the next, it wasn't exactly the next thing that we built as a feature. We built a bunch of other things on the way, but the other things that we built on the way mainly dealt with what we can connect to and what can we monitor. I'm just going to mention the hypervisors, the different cloud connections that we have, the EUC environment. So ControlUp definitely expanded a lot with regards to what are the other things it was able to connect to. But I want to focus on what do we do with all this different data, right? So the challenge was, hey, that customers used to tell us, we have this bunch of people who want to work with ControlUp, but they're just not going to open this heavy Windows executable. Maybe they're even like using a machine doesn't even run Windows, and maybe that's not even necessarily an environment in which VDI can be a thing, or they need to open it. Like ideally, they wanted it to work inside a browser. So that's how ControlUp Solve came about. Let me just open it real quick over here. Where's my Solve? Right. There we go. All right, so this is Solve. So Solve is like the ControlUp console. You can look at it in two ways. So one way is just it's a SaaS alternative for ControlUp console. So you just log into this website, and you get this web application that shows you everything that's happening. And the main functionality of it is very much similar to what ControlUp console does. So you look at the resources, you search for them, you sort them. You can right click and get actions. So that all of those things kind of evolved gradually into Solve. But this is right now, it's the go-to solution for monitoring things and managing your environment in real time. And over time, we also introduced the historical part of historical side of things into Solve. So one thing that I love about Solve is this view over here on the top. So it basically creates that's kind of a nice summary of all the different resources that we have. So machines, hosts, virtualization clusters, storage, sessions, host pools in the cloud applications. You have ADCs, right? So aka NetScalers, and all the rest. So it kind of gives you this overview of all the different things that we're looking at, all the different entities, and it still preserves the logic of drilling down. So you can look for a user, you can double click into the session of a user, just in the same way that as you would do, very similar to what you would do with a ControlUp console. Only the main upside was that you didn't have to run ControlUp console, and you didn't have to be inside the actual network to do this. So those are two things that were great for Solve. All you need for Solve, by the way, like all you need is to deploy ControlUp Monitor, right? And to start sending data to the cloud. The way it basically works is that there's a cluster of services in the cloud, and it actually talks to the monitor, asking for it to pull the information that you need and pulls it back to display it for you over there. So we don't have much time to get into the details of the architecture, but the main idea was to just put ControlUp console in a browser, right? And that was the main idea of Solve, and that's the main purpose. Over time, we ported a lot of the different components, like for example, reports from Insights, right? So we get reports over here. So these are familiar reports that we also have in Insights, kind of the same report that I just showed you in Insights. It's also available here. And over time, we're also porting new things that we're building. We're also porting them into Solve. So one example for that would be streaming reports. So it kind of seems duplicate with the legacy reports that we have. So the legacy reports, the session activity, like, okay, let's look at, for example, this. Okay, so the number of machines that I have in the environment. So the last data point over here is 555, which is almost an hour ago, right? So the delay between the time that it takes, for data to reach ControlUp Insights, and these are reports, basically used for ControlUp Insights, only they're, exposed via Solve. So it takes almost an hour for data to actually reach this. Streaming reports are different. Streaming reports are actually much faster, and you get, let's take like machine trends, and you will look at the last data point over here, and we can see that the last data point here is less than 5 minutes ago, right? So this is just something that, so great to have a SaaS solution finally for us, because here we can innovate all the time. So we kind of port this new functionality into here. So right now we have two sets of reports going on, one on the legacy side and one the streaming reports that are much faster to get data into the cloud. So these are almost real time. So the ultimate vision, I guess, is to kind of connect those two things together completely, so that we see there will be no like major distinction between real time and history. It just depends on your time selector. So Solve was the next thing. I want to quickly cover, because like always, you plan for one thing and then time just passes fast. So I want to talk about a couple of other components, just mention them kind of briefly by name. And there's one component that I want to kind of talk a little bit more about. So synthetic monitoring is achieved with ControlUp by means of a product called Scoutbees, which is also ported into Solve over here. And the idea for this product also came from customers doing all kinds of stuff to make sure that they have active monitoring going on. So customers used to create all kinds of creative solutions with scripts, with third-party products. They used to log into their environments, and then they wanted to be alerted when this thing is slow or it doesn't work. So basically, Scoutbees is is a way to configure automatic logins that happen all the time to your environment, and then you can get alerts and you can get reports of how it actually behaves over time. So that's synthetic monitoring for you. And a couple of other things. Okay, so and the product that I want to mention a little bit more in depth, excuse me, is Edge DX, which stands for Edge Digital Experience. Basically, the idea was to offer the same visibility that we offered with ControlUp for VDI and terminal service environment, to offer the same for physical endpoints. Sorry about that. I've been talking a lot here. So basically, we've been adding sorry. So we basically acquired a company called Avasy, and then we rebranded that part of the product as Edge DX. And now we're actually using agents on physical machines to also integrate with Solve and populate this whole view of reports. So we have all kinds of reports for those machines. You can look at what's happening on the actual machine. Same logic, you can drill down into the machine, see what's happening on it, and perform action on it. So very similar to what's happening with ControlUp agent, only it's geared towards the physical PCs. And one major difference with what's happening here is that with physical PCs running the Edge DX agent, the architecture is the other way around. So instead of like ControlUp console would used to be a server, the ControlUp agent used to be a server you connect to, whereas Edge DX is actually a client that reports data to the Edge cloud and then presents the data via, okay, this would be a solve this time, right? So the idea is because the different physical machines tend to be, you know, like dispersed all over, you want those machines to be reporting to you rather than you trying to connect to them, right? So that's like the architectural reason for it being this way. And the next, and I also kind of want to mention, just by name, a couple of, come on. Sorry about that. No, I can't. Am I showing screen? All right. I'm trying to switch. Some things are weird with Zoom. Yeah. So with you guys, sorry. A couple of other things that I need to mention just by name is the mobile app, right? So with mobile app, we have guys. Okay, I was sure that that I disconnected here. Sorry. So mobile app is one way to get alerts about what's happening in the environment. So it's another component that is kind of standalone, and you can use it alongside of all this. Another component, another name that you could maybe you've heard is Remote DX. And Remote DX is actually for VDI environments. But what happens is when people connect to those VDI machines from a physical machine somewhere, you want to get some information about that physical machine they're connecting from. For example, to know how is their Wi-Fi behaving for the connection. So here's a simple example of that, right? When we're looking in Solve, let me just go to the user sessions view, and we'll try to locate something that has this, home icon here. And that's actually a good way of looking at what's happening with on the actual client computer from the physical endpoint from which the user is connected. So it was our first attempt to extend beyond the VDI to the actual physical endpoint. So that was remote DX. And then we went ahead and built, acquired LSE and integrated Edge DX for full visibility. So the last couple of minutes, I just want to mention the next step of all this journey over here, which is basically this. This is, we call this DEX, or ControlUp Digital Experience. This is the new platform that we're going to use, which basically is like the next step for Solve, right? So one of the major differences is how you even log into this, right? So this is very, very new. There's a lot of stuff that is not finished here. But the one major difference between how our legacy products work and how this works is, first thing you notice is like you can actually use modern login techniques. Like you can use Azure, you can use Google authentication, you can use there's also other ways to integrate with SAML, single sign-on. So the login is no longer based on some ControlUp account that we create for you, but it's actually leveraging all kinds of authentication providers, which is great, and it also goes a long way with making it available. But as a vision, just as a quick glance of what's happening here, so it's gonna contain the basic information about your physical machines. It's gonna show everything that's happening with your unified communications and conferencing, so Zoom and so on. You're gonna have a part that deals with user sentiment, VDI, all the traditional VDI stuff, and the synthetic monitoring we touched on briefly before. So this is the next kind of generation of our product. The main thing about it, the main theme is digital experience. So there will be an employee view here, using which you will be able to see kind of like with an employee-centric display of what's happening with all of your users, regardless of what device they're using or what are they actually doing. So with that, I have to we kind of ran out of time here. And sorry if not everything could be covered during that, but the good news is that we have more meetings to come, right, Doug?
You got it, Eugene. That was great. That was absolutely great. And if anything, we could have gone an extra half an hour at least, right? So we'll definitely have you back and do more of these, because this is great stuff. And I thank everyone for the questions too, and hopefully we got to all of them. And if we didn't get to all of them, we apologize. We'll definitely do in the near future another Ask Us Anything event, and then the next one we do, I want to do with live demo too. So if you ask a question, we can actually bring up on the screen and show you exactly just like what Eugene was doing today. So please stay tuned for that. We're going to do usually our meetups will be one like we did today. The next one will be an Ask Us Anything type of thing, then another, and then another Ask Us Anything. So try to do those quite often because they really are of value. Also, please ask these questions in the community. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. I loved it. Eugene, that was absolutely perfect. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. Thanks again. Sorry to everyone who asked the question and didn't get an answer here. Please keep, my suggestion is keep it a little bit more focused, and post it to the community. And people, if you say the exact thing you need, more, not even a general thing, you can be very specific and say, I need this particular report sent like that, and I wanted to do this. Just try us, right? The community will take care of you, and there are people who are gonna guide you exactly to what you need to get. And you can be very specific as far as your use case and what do you need to solve, and people will understand, because we're basically all in the same industry, and we kind of we know the challenges, or we want to think we know the challenges, and try us, give us a chance.
Yeah. Excellent. I love it. I love it. So thank you all again for joining this ControlUp Community Meetup. I hope you enjoyed it. Please let me know if you did not and how we can make it better. And if you did, please tell a friend. Thank you all. Eugene, thank you. And I'll get on with my day. I'm here in sunny Florida. Eugene's in somewhere in Israel. And I hope you guys all have a great one. So take care all.
Thanks, guys.